Hello, everyone. Welcome to TV Literate, the podcast that unapologetically enjoys trashy TV. I'm Gillian.
And I'm Megan.
And we're here, guys.
We are back. Back at it again.
Almost spooky season.
I mean, I think I'm fully in spooky season.
Yes. Yes.
But I understand
almost
what
like
you mean.
mainstream spooky season. We're like 3 days away.
Right. It's definitely October 1st is definitely like there are no questions asked. It's fucking spooky season. But for me, spooky season definitely starts like September 1st. So
Chris lets me start decorating August 15th. So
that's really good. That's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah. Only inside though. So
that's fair. That's fair.
No outside because that's weird in like mid-August. But like inside, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna put up these fucking ravens.
Yeah, we have like a jack-o'-lantern on our mantle like that we've had up for a couple weeks now, and yeah, it brings me joy to see it. So, you know,
it really does.
Yeah, it just puts a smile on my face. There's nothing wrong with that.
I mean, we take the joy that we can get these days, and if your joy is spooky season, then have at it.
Exactly. So, Gillian, what have you been watching this week?
Oh my god. So, nothing trashy. I watched Midnight Mass on Netflix, and that blew my fucking mind, and it was so good. We watched 6 episodes in one night, and they are an hour and 10 minutes long each.
Jeez. Yeah, that's crazy. That's gotta be good. I cannot do that for just anything.
Right? Yeah, no, it's so good, and perfect for spooky season, and also perfect for our podcast because it deals with a lot of the like perversion of faith and the cult like things of Christianity and Catholicism and
hell yes,
very weird stuff.
That's going straight on the top of my list for sure. I've heard about it, but I haven't really heard a lot about like if it's actually good or not. So
it's very good. Don't look at anything else about what it's about because it's very nice to be just as lost as everybody in there.
I love going in blind. I love it. So
me too, man. It's so good. Like I love going into movies blind. I'm just like, yes. I don't want to know anything. I don't even watch a trailer.
Exactly.
Yeah. What have you been watching? Because that's not all I've been watching.
Yeah, I haven't watched a ton of TV, but I have watched some good stuff. Again, not particularly trashy. I mean, okay. Well, I finished watching 9 Perfect Strangers, the last episode, which was crazy. And yeah, I really enjoyed that series though as a whole. I think it was just a really crazy but fun and also short and easy to digest little series. So highly recommend. And
man, that was good.
Other than that, no, it's okay. The other thing, which is the most exciting thing to me, is the fucking 41st season of Survivor premiered this week.
And
shit. Yeah, it's back. It's been off, since the last season 40 finished airing in like May of 2020, and then they haven't been able to film. And so it's back, and was so good. It was just like the first episode, like the first few episodes are always a little, I mean, there's so many people, it's hard to get to know everyone, but once you like really get into it, really starts getting good. But I was just like so happy to be back and to have Jeff Probst back. And yeah, I don't know. Survivor's my favorite show ever. So it was just like nice.
That's fair.
It felt a little bit of normal life, And it's nice because they actually talk a lot about COVID on the show too, and like how it's impacted people's lives and people's like gameplay and things like that. But also like they talk about how like they've clearly followed very strict COVID, like quarantined weeks before in hotels. So it does, and they're like all together on a abandoned island, so it doesn't feel like that cringy, because all these people are quarantined.
You can just kind of enjoy it because you're like, they're a bubble now.
Exactly. So
where
yeah,
it's
that's
not
nice.
Just the constant like, oh god, did they all get COVID after this?
Right, exactly. So that's exciting. So if you are interested, it's a brand new, like all new cast. Not you, Gillian, just as a general you to all of our listeners. I'm just trying to get as many people to watch Survivor as I can because it's amazing.
Yeah, and I feel like I haven't seen a lot of like ads for the new season or anything.
Yeah, I've seen like the only reason I've seen it is because like I know people who are also into Survivor. But yeah, I, like
Yeah.
outside of like the Survivor, like Reddit and my friends, yeah, I haven't seen a lot about it either. But this is a new season and like a completely new cast, and so you could like jump right in. You don't have to watch any of the previous 40 seasons to get into it. So highly recommend if you're looking for something new. Wednesdays at 8 on CBS. Not
Hell
sponsored.
Yeah. Not sponsored. But if you want to sponsor us, Survivor,
oh yeah,
we'll
take it.
We'll interview anyone.
I am obsessed with Survivor. Survivor has gotten me through many a rough time in my life, so yes.
I get that. Yeah. I don't know, it's nice that shows are coming back and that people are still kind of like cognizant of the COVID risk and usually are like, all right, well, we're doing 2 weeks beforehand, we're all in a hotel and then we're filming. And you're just like, okay, so I can actually enjoy this.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you could tell like Jeff Probst has like a little bit of COVID hair. His hair is like longer than it's ever been. It's like amazing. He's been through it too. I saw an interview with him before the season started where he was like, yeah, all of us producers have just been at home for a full year thinking of new crazy things we could do on Survivor. So, and I'm like, oh God, it's gonna get weird. It's gonna get weird. I just know it. So get ready.
Yeah. I remember one of the like earlier Survivors. It might have been, I think it was Survivor, but it might have been Amazing Race, and they had to drink cow blood with the Maasai. Yeah. I don't remember Survivor. What that was. Yeah, hell yeah. Okay, that is like still top 10 craziest things I've seen on TV. Even though it's like, you know, the Maasai do that all the time, but it's just drinking warm blood fresh from a cow is hardcore.
Hard fucking core. Yeah. They haven't done, I feel like, I could be wrong, but they haven't done like a eat weird things challenge in a long time. They used to do that all the time in the beginning, and those were always like really disgusting, but they don't do them anymore, which is interesting.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's because they didn't want to be affiliated with He Who Shall Not Be Named on Fear Factor.
Yeah, exactly. It's not wrong.
I'm not saying his name on our podcast. We're not giving him any listeners.
No,
Screw that man. Mm-mm. All right.
Let's get into it. I'm excited.
I am too.
I'm excited to talk about this because holy shit.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It started out crazy and then just got more crazy the more detail they gave.
It did not stop at all. And so today, let's introduce what we're talking about, I guess. We will be talking about the mini docuseries on Amazon Prime, LuLaRich, which is an expose of sorts on Lularoe and kind of MLMs in general.
Yeah. It was very interesting watching this because I've always been like super anti-MLM and
Same.
like my mom kind of did like Pampered Chef when I was a kid, but she didn't have much success with it, and so I was always like, you know, I think that's probably pretty much everybody's story. You'll lose money on it. And when I was watching this, I was watching it with Chris, and he's like, you know, this I'd never really thought about MLMs being like so predatory because he's like everyone here in Appalachia is part of at least like 1 or 2 MLMs, like Mary Kay, Avon, Amway. Everywhere. And it's like, what if it's like if you have to be part of 4 of them to make any amount of a living, it's probably not a great opportunity.
Probably not. No. Yeah, I've always like I'm the same way as you. Like I've always really felt negatively toward MLMs, and I've never really known anyone like personally who's been involved in an MLM. So I don't know a lot of like personal stories, but they're just gross. They're fucking gross.
Yeah. Yeah. And like they all kind of make sense on the surface, but the second you give any thought to it, it's like, oh shit, yeah, no, this is made for the rich people to get richer and the poor people to give them all their money.
Yeah. And that's the worst part too, is that like so many people don't find that out until they're already like super deep into it, and it's fucked up.
Okay.
Let's get started
it with our feelings.
So the first episode is called Startup. So we kind of in this episode start off by being introduced to the founders of Lularoe and their office, which is their home office is in Corona, California. Did you notice that? I like started sweating when I heard that.
Yeah, well, and they're Mormons. And I'm
Yeah.
sure that they may have been patient zero of Corona in Corona.
Would not be surprised.
Mm-mm.
But so the two people who started Lularoe are Mark and Deanne. What are their last names? I don't even have their last names in here.
Stidham, I think, because her
Okay.
maiden name was Startup.
Yeah,
Which is
okay. I think
hilarious.
I just saw both of those names and I was like, that's the same name, but it's not. So Mark and Deanne Stidham, who they are married. They got married, like a blended family, and they ended up having like how many kids? 11 kids or something
14.
like that.
14.
14. I was a little off.
Deanne was married and Mormon first, so she had 7 kids. And Mark was married and Mormon, and so he had 4 kids. And so then there were 4 plus 7, and then they adopted more together, which we then get that they adopted Anna, who fell in love with Michael, who was one of his kids. And so his stepdaughter married her stepbrother, but they never lived together. And we just really glossed over that.
We did. They just threw it out there like they want to make sure they put it out there so it's not like called out. So it's like, oh, we talked about it, but we didn't talk about it at all because we're just moving right along.
We'll tell you that story sometime. And I'm like, yeah, you will.
Sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're Mormons.
Yep.
So
and so are a lot of MLMs. I mean, unsponsored, but if you guys listen to the Dream podcast, there's the whole first season is on MLMs and how it targets weirdly Mormon women, stay-at-home women, women who are like in very like strict religious households. It's very weird.
Right. It is so weird. But yeah, Deanne talks a little bit about her growing up. She was kid 10 of 11 and a twin. So yeah, like fucked up. Too many kids, sorry. And her maiden name was Startup, which is kind of funny.
And her name is Deanne, and her twin's name is Diane.
Yeah, you should not do that to your twins, your children.
No.
Don't do that.
No, if you just name them 2 completely different things if you don't want to figure out cute twin names.
Not only is it like just bad for them, but it doesn't help you. Like that could only be confusing to you, especially when you already have 9 other kids.
And they were accidental when their mom was 44, so they were young set of twins when everybody else had already grown up with an older mom and dad. I don't know. It seems like a hard time and kind of like, I don't know. It doesn't feel great.
No, it does not. And Mark talks about his childhood. He grew up middle class, but it seems like it was more than middle class because he said, I never considered having a job or working for anyone. It's like, what the fuck? If you grew up middle class, I feel like that's
kind of all you think about. Like your parents are career oriented for you. They're like, you're going to go to college and you're going to be a manager.
Exactly. Like what the fuck?
Yeah. And then there's that fucking story of his dad who says when he was 16, they were going through a rough patch financially, and somebody said, oh, they're hiring at the mines, one of the neighbors, and his dad said, there's only one thing worse than being flat broke, and that's knowing I'm going to make $412 a week for the rest of my life. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. Lots of people would be really glad to have $400 a week for the rest of their life.
Yeah, and like, yeah, that's way better. Like, being flat broke is not, like, that's just like the most idiotic and like also privileged thing to say too, because like I'm sure that like a flat broke person who would not say no to $400 and whatever dollars a month. Like what the fuck?
Well, and like I feel like the dad and the family just in general were kind of like bougie, and they're like, oh yeah, we're broke. We only have $50,000 coming in this year or something, instead of being like actually poor. Like,
yeah, that's not like no, like that's just like normal like struggles of life.
Everyone,
but
capitalism.
That's not being broke. Exactly.
Yeah.
But this, I guess, his childhood kind of inspired him to be an entrepreneur because there are no limits when you are an entrepreneur. So
no limits.
Okay.
No limits either way, because you can also end up shit fucking debt.
Exactly.
But not if you're scamming people.
Exactly. That's how you do it. That's how you do it in this country for sure. Okay, so we get into how kind of Deanne gets into MLMs and things like that. So basically, she starts an MLM with this guy
Yeah.
who was selling dresses, I guess, at a much cheaper price than like retail or whatever.
Yeah, at a
And
swap meet or whatever.
right. And Deanne noticed that nobody was really buying these dresses, but they were such a good deal, so she like bought a bunch of dresses and then sold them for a higher price to her friends or whatever. And
Had a dress
thus
party at her house.
a dress party. Exactly. And so she started doing about 15 parties a week across several states and made $40,000 profit.
Yeah.
And so,
which was a lot for the 80s.
yeah, definitely. I mean, sure. So she said she did this for 27 years and then she started making her own maxi skirts.
This whole thing is just like the most insane. I don't know why. It's like, oh yes, this woman went to a swap meet and bought all of these dresses, these $80 dresses for $10. And then she decided she was going to make maxi skirts.
Yeah, it is kind of like a weird leap from one thing to the next, but
yeah.
All right. We'll go
I don't
with
know.
it.
It's, she was raising 7 kids as a single mom. I get it.
Right. So as she is making her own maxi dresses, she starts selling them out of her garage as well. And demand started ramping up. Everyone loved these skirts. They were incredible. I don't know. But I think a lot of I like truly do not understand the appeal of Lularoe. I'm not trying to be like whatever,
either.
But I don't.
I love leggings, but like I don't love $40 leggings.
Yeah, exactly. I wear leggings all the time, but it's like whatever. I also like I have to have pockets in my leggings because I have an insulin pump, and so anyway.
I get that.
So I think a lot of this, which this kind of was brought up a lot over the whole series, that a lot of the reason why people like them so much is because like the patterns were really unique because they would only make like a select number of pieces per pattern, and so if you liked that pattern you had to grab it then or else you would never see it again.
Yeah.
So
that exclusivity, man, that's how you get
kind
people
of a
to buy
genius
shit.
thing. Yeah.
So in 2012 Deanne met a girl in Utah, of course, who was buying for her friends, and like 10 friends. And so she's like, you know what? You should be a distributor of my stuff. Which, again, this is all above board. Like if you are a wholesaler who is making your own product, and you're like, hey, there's another market I can go into. I will sell this to you, and then you will sell it.
Sure.
That's reasonable. And then it gets fucking nuts. So she starts recruiting everyone eventually, and I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I guess it's interesting too because I think this is where it kind of it really shows how Mark's influence, I feel like, is really so like sinister because I think she just started out just really wanting like her friend to sell it, and then she like talked to Mark, and Mark was like, you know how we can make this really beneficial to your friend is we can make her sell, we can make her get other people to sell, and it seemed like, oh god, Mark's just
yeah, I mean, like, this lady went from just selling kids' clothes and women's skirts and stuff for 27 years and then was like, you know what, I got this new husband and I'm gonna scam a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, it's just like, oh god, ew.
Yeah. We do figure out where the name Lularoe came from.
Thank God.
I
was
can't
wondering.
even.
I know.
Were you?
I was really wondering just because I had to think there had to be some stupid reason it was named that. Which, I mean, it's not that, I guess the reasoning's not that bad because they have granddaughters named Lucy, Lola, and Monroe. And so they just like combined their name, which is like, whatever.
Which, Lucy, Lola, and Monroe. Like, it could have been named like it could have been named Lululemon.
Yeah, it really could have. That, I mean, I definitely remember when Lularoe first came out, I like kind of thought Lularoe and Lululemon were like the same thing because I don't know anything.
Yeah, they're all really expensive leggings that I'm gonna wear through in 3 months.
That anyway, definitely, yeah, there was definitely like that was intentional to make it sound very similar. I think definitely.
I think so. Yeah, well, especially because Lululemon's like a big cult too.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
to work in there, you have to be a specific size, and you have to go to like all these orientation things. And then there was that fucking murder that happened in a Lululemon store.
Oh, that was
someone just went
fucked
nuts.
up.
Yeah,
That was fucked up. And then I feel like, and this doesn't go for everyone who wears Lululemon all the time or Lululemon at all, but I feel like so many people who are into Lululemon like only wear Lululemon stuff, and it's really fucking expensive. So
yeah, for leggings that when you bend over you can see your underoos or your butt crack.
Right. No thanks.
I'm gonna stick to my $12 Old Navy ones that when they wear out I don't feel bad throwing them out.
Exactly. So next up, we kind of talk a little bit about MLMs in general and kind of the history of MLMs. And Neutralite, I guess, was the first MLM, and that led to Amway, which really converted basically the salespeople into the customers.
Yep.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Amway is just, it's okay. So I never even heard about Amway in Denver when I lived there or anything, but here everyone's on Amway all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't like it. I'm like, please, no.
Yeah, it's not great.
We get into the part of where MLMs are fully unsustainable because once you get 13 levels of people, you have more than the population of the planet.
Right. Which is not, not
feasible.
Great. So not helpful.
Yeah. And if it's just in the US, then you burn out in like, I don't know, 3 or 4 levels.
Right. They also touch on how MLMs have really exploded lately because of social media, which is touched on a lot because I definitely remember, I feel like Lularoe is one of the first big MLMs that I saw like boom on Facebook. It was one of those like premier MLMs that I remember seeing everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it was such like a thing. Like you'd always get on Facebook and there'd be somebody who had invited you to a Lularoe live group or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, ugh.
Yeah. Leave me alone.
I don't want your leggings. I have
Please.
one pair of Lularoe leggings that I got as that I got because somebody's dog tore my leggings and they were like, here, just have these.
Nice.
to
Yeah.
put on. Yeah. And they are buttery soft, but that's all I got to say for them.
That's it.
Okay. So we start meeting our people.
Yes.
So we're in Tacoma, Washington, and we meet Ashley Lautaha. And she's a former distributor. She was the third retailer to join the team after the Utah girl and Deanne herself.
Yeah.
So they were stationed in Washington. She had come from Hawaii, and so she saw the stuff, really liked the clothes, and got in touch with Deanne. And Deanne flew on out and helped her how to sell the stuff.
Yeah, she swooped fucking in. Like, she took the opportunity and was like, this is what you're gonna do. Yeah, she was really talking about how in the beginning of her being involved in Lularoe, how their main goal was to show how successful they were in order to recruit other people, which I thought was interesting. Their goal was like to throw a really good party where everyone's having a lot of fun and everyone's buying a lot of stuff, and then like those people would be more likely to sell Lularoe themselves, which again, it's like very predatory feeling.
Oh yeah, you could have just as nice of a time of this and earn money while you do it, except you have to wheedle all of your friends to join and like to get there
and spend a shit ton of money up front.
God. And so Deanne kind of said a throwaway line on this one of like how the parties are supposed to be, and she's like, always have music, it needs to be upbeat and fun with no refreshments because these women are always on a diet.
Oh god, it's so much cringe. It's
so bad. And it's just the whole company itself is fat phobic as shit. That's all I gotta say.
For fucking real. So in 2014 is when they started selling the magic leggings, which everyone was obsessed with. I feel like this was really everyone talked about Lularoe leggings in particular.
Yes.
And I loved they were talking about one of the like retailers was talking about how she was marketing the leggings, and she was like, yes, these wild leggings will look great with this chambray shirt. And I was like, damn, that is like such a 2014 sentence.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, the 2014, I don't think I realized how much of what I saw in the world was Lularoe, like 2014 to 2017ish, but it all was.
Definitely. Yeah,
it was
it's
all
crazy.
Lularoe. This woman had a very funny moment where she's like, I can't remember which one this is. I think it's Lauren on this one.
Yeah, I had a full disclosure. I had a really hard time keeping the names of the ladies straight. They feel like they didn't have them up on the screen enough
They
for me
showed
to
them
be
once
able to.
per episode. That's horrible.
Yeah. So I am gonna be a lot of like, somebody said this, because I don't know which one it is.
But I think this was Lauren, and she was like, she had a party, and all of her friends, she was like, friends, you can sign up and do this, and you can make money too. And they're like, what's the catch? And she's like, well, I don't think there's a catch. And it's like, that's the draw of the MLM, is because at the very beginning, there isn't technically a catch, because you can still make money. The market isn't saturated. It's like you actually can offer a product to people, and then it turns on its head.
It gets bad. It gets bad. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
So one of the big things that was constantly kind of hammered in, especially when it comes to like recruiting other people, is kind of this idea of this community, this sense of community within Lularoe retailers and stuff like that. And I think they talked a lot about how a big difference between Lularoe and other MLMs was like the wide variety of products, like we talked about with the different patterns and stuff like that. And so it was a lot less about like competition between two sellers and more like, oh, I can see if somebody I know has this pattern, stuff like that. So that was kind of like a draw to these people. Again, a lot of these people who are retailers are stay-at-home moms, people probably who are looking for a community. And again, this is perfect for them.
Yep. Yeah. Throughout this whole series, they showed some Lularoe ads, which, wow, those ads were unfucking hinged. There was one in this section where it's like, we are mothers and we are changing the world through social fashion. And it's like, what? You're doing what? None of that matters. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, they were a lot for sure. They really thought that they were doing something with their crazy leggings.
Oh, yeah. So we get kind of into the nitty gritties now, where the startup cost to become a retailer was between $5,000 and $10,000 to buy in. And so one of the girls that we met was Courtney Harwood. I will never remember her name again. I just wrote it down here. So she went to the credit union after work one day, or on her lunch break, and got a loan, even though she had already had maxed out credit cards, wasn't making enough money to support her family. She just did it and signed up, and then told her husband about it later, and he was like, you have to pay to sign up? That sounds like a scam.
Yeah, it sure does, doesn't it?
Sure is. Kind of wish you had taught your women folk in Mormonism about business more, not just child rearing.
Also, just like, don't take out a loan without consulting. Like, if you are married, like, it's just like, it affects your spouse too. You need to consult them.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same vibe that I get when when they have those commercials at Christmas where like the husband pulls the woman out of the house and is like, here's your new $70,000 car. And I'm like, there should have been a discussion.
Yeah, definitely. That's a big thing. Unless you like just won the lottery and have a whole lot of money to spend and you could just buy it out front, like,
yeah, if you're rich, then fine. But if you're just like regular people, don't do that.
Agreed. I hate Mark in general, but I hate how he talks about women. He talks about them like they're a resource, like that they're like a thing. He says that there's an underutilized resource of stay-at-home moms, and it's like, they're not for you to use. It's not.
Yeah. Women who stay at home with their children do have a job called caring for the children in the household.
That is a job. That is a very important job. Like, raising the next generation of people is work. It's a job, and somebody's got to do it.
Yep. Okay, so now we get introduced to Sam Schultz, who is Deanne's nephew, and he was hired as the events director. And so the first event that they did, like the conference, he got Mario Lopez, and everyone freaked out. And apparently the Monday after this, 11,000 people had signed up to be part of a Lularoe retailer, whatever.
Yeah, like that's so fucking crazy. But like the whole reasoning behind getting Mario Lopez just to like literally pose with pictures with people was that so everyone was posting this, and then like everyone was seeing it because it's Mario Lopez, and then it's kind of really smart. But
yeah, it's so smart. This dude would actually do really well as an events director for like a real company or like
for sure
whatever he wants to do. But yeah, it was very funny and very depressing, both personally and societally, that this man was just like, sometimes I played new music, but then you play NSYNC and the crowd goes wild.
I think that the worst part is that like I fall so deeply into that trap too, because I love NSYNC so much, and I'm not ashamed of it, but I am ashamed of it. So
yeah, I'm ashamed of it insofar as I'm easily manipulated with NSYNC and Backstreet Boys into thinking I'm having a good time.
Definitely easily manipulated with 90s boys bands for sure.
Yeah,
that's
God. And so this is close to the end of this episode, which did you notice at the end of the episode they played NSYNC?
Yes, I loved it.
I didn't even go to the next episode. I just let the whole thing play.
Me too. I watched all the credits, and I never do that. I was like, fuck yeah, NSYNC though. I need this.
They got us. They really got us.
I was so disappointed in myself. Still I am.
Okay, so the last little chunk of this episode was basically them being like, fuck, we just got a whole lot of people signed up for this, and we don't know how to do business.
It's called catastrophic growth was the term they used for it, which is like kind of hilarious. But yeah, it's just like way too much all at once, and they have no fucking idea what they're doing.
I think it was Sam who said, it was like flying a plane while you're still building the plane, except you don't know how to build a plane and you're not a pilot.
Great. Wonderful.
Yeah, that sounds great.
It's going to be great.
Wing it.
So then that leads straight into episode 2, which is called Show Up.
So we get a whole lot of, you can make a full-time income for part-time work, which was their big thing. And all of them being like, oh, don't go into debt. But let's see. Oh, okay. This is where we meet Lachey, who was a good character on this one.
She was good, yes. She was like basically headhunted to start Lularoe, and she started like on the onboarding team, basically helping people get started selling Lularoe. And she said it was really good at the beginning. And she tells a story about how on her first day, and she showed up at the office in Chanel, like looking really nice and presentable, and Deanne stopped her and was like, why aren't you wearing Lularoe?
And made her go to the warehouse and pick out clothes to wear. Like,
okay.
Right.
All right.
We also meet Ileana, who is one of the head designers, and she's like, I got promoted to head designer even though I wasn't wearing Lularoe, because like they said, they like mentioned that specifically, like, we see you haven't worn Lularoe in a couple days. It's like, why does it fucking matter? You guys work in the office, like,
nobody's seeing you. It's not like you're like interacting like a retailer. I understand wanting a retailer to wear your, people interacting with customers, but literally you're just in an office answering phones.
You're just working corporate. Yeah, you don't need Lularoe. But I mean, fair. If you get it, if they get it for free, it would be nice to sit in comfy leggings to answer the phone.
That's true. It could be worse.
Yeah, it could be.
So we also meet Daryl, who talks about his job interview at Lularoe, which I loved hearing this. They apparently had to do like a color wheel exercise and like figure out what color they would be. And he said it was the weirdest interview he's ever been to.
I can imagine. I fucking hate interviews that have those personality quiz things in them.
Yeah, like it's just ask me the question. Like let's just be straight. You can just ask me what I'm like and I'll tell you.
Yeah, just like give me a checkbox that says I won't steal anything, and if I steal anything, I'm fired, and I'll check that box and sign it. Yeah, like that's mostly what they're looking for is how easily manipulatable are you, and will you steal from us?
Right. Daryl also talks about all the like little dumb perks that they had, like sandwich bars and a Burrito Man Friday and catered Chipotle. And this reminds me of that meme. That what do they call it again?
Chipoo-poo.
Chipoo-poo. I hated that, and I want that burned from my memory again.
I love
it. But anyway, all these perks and stuff remind me of that meme where it's like somebody like with their hand out of the water and like the boss being like pizza party, and
then they drown.
Yeah, they drown, and that's such a mood. That's what it's like.
Yeah, it's one of those things like how Google and Amazon and stuff are like, look at all these cool amenities we have at work because then you'll never leave work.
Right. We won't pay you a livable wage and we'll treat you like shit, but you get sandwiches every day for lunch.
Yup. God. So they were saying like the vibe in corporate was that they were all chilling and Mark and Deanne never really were there, but whoever sat in the corner office with the window had to watch out for their fleet of BMWs or whatever rolling up and warn everybody else in there.
Which is really funny, like mood. But I also thought it was funny, which I just think that the editing on this was incredible and made Mark and Deanne look so fucking dumb. Like they had a clip of them being like, "Oh yeah, we were at the office every day. We saw through everything. We were a part of everything." And then it went back to the employees being like, "Yeah, I saw them like twice while I was there."
Yeah, God, it was so perfect. Like, especially when we get into the later episodes of this where they're like going against their deposition and what they actually know.
Oh God, it's so good.
It's so good. We also learned that they have been using Google Docs, not just multiple Google Docs, but one Google Doc that everyone works on at the same time.
Yeah, that sounds really efficient, really great. Like no specialized software at all.
No, but hey, if you just do it on Google Docs, they can't audit you.
I mean, I guess that's true. God, no. This whole episode or this whole docuseries reminded me so much of the fucking Fire Festival docuseries, or documentaries. Like it's same energy for sure.
Yeah, just people with a lot of money and a lot of confidence and no morals or ethics.
Exactly, 100%.
So Lachey started talking about how the onboarding team would do like the purchase of the initial package, and people would freak out whenever they called because it would take like 90 days for you to get called from when you signed up on the list. And they had to onboard 500 people a day. That's so many people.
That is so many people. That is, and there's like 500 new people every day. That's just like that growth is so like that's so daunting.
Yeah. And it's like so dumb. Like they were just really greedy on this, because if they had made it more exclusive, like, oh, we only take 10 new people a day, holy shit, you would have been able to do the scam for longer, and also you would have had like a much more sustainable company.
Definitely. Yeah, no, they are just greedy as fuck, and that was their downfall. Ultimately, that was their downfall. I cannot talk.
Automatically.
But I just thought it was funny that like people are just so fucking excited to essentially have to pay $5,000 to start with this company. It's like, oh, these poor people.
I know, like you think it's $5,000 that's gonna make you into a millionaire, but most of the time investments like that are not. They just get you a house full of stinky ass leggings.
Oh Lord, yes, which we will get into. We get into kind of how Lularoe was kind of the perfect storm of everything. Again, the rise of social media at this time, it was like the perfect way to recruit people and to sell. They talk a lot about how Facebook Live and just like live, streams is a lot of the reason a lot of the way how people sold their inventory. But also a lot of American families were struggling with and needed extra income. And there were a lot of like educated women at home, with their kids, whatever, having some time and wanting to work. And again, also the rise of athleisure with like Lululemon and all that stuff being so big. It just like all kind of combined to make Lularoe like the perfect trash heap.
The perfect trash heap. God. I don't know. This whole thing was so wild. And then it was nice when they got Lachey in because they did start talking about more like the racial aspects of MLMs and everything and stay-at-home momming. Because like being a stay-at-home mom is not really a thing that can be done when you are a person who is a minority, especially if you're a single mom or if, you're a black couple with kids. Your husband doesn't make as much as a white man, and you as a black woman definitely don't make as much as a white man. Like,
also probably a lot less generational wealth there too, which it all, combines. And it's exactly the quote that I have from a journalist who was commenting said the feminine vision of a stay-at-home mom is a very white vision, and that is the truth.
Yep, and they were saying that Lularoe was catering to white womanhood and white girl business, which
basically 100%, because almost everyone involved was like a white woman, and I think they had a couple of women of color talking about how like they were like the only women of color retailer that they knew.
Yeah, they're like, I stand out. Shall we go to Tiffany and Paul?
Let's get into Tiffany and Paul.
Poor Tiffany and Paul, but not really, because again, Mormons.
Yeah. So they're a married couple who joined Lularoe in May of 2016, and they were like always in the top 10 for sales, a lot of times in the top 3. They were doing like really, really well. And they were actually on fucking Extreme Couponing back in the day, which I loved that show when it was on TLC. I watch it all the time. I don't know what it is about that show, but it's very satisfying. So, yeah, I love that they were watching it. Or I love that they were on the show, and I really want to watch that episode now.
Yes. And also, it's like, so with the Extreme Couponing, Tiffany was in the early waves of the mommy bloggers. So she was a couponing mommy blogger. She was, mom advice, whatever. So then immediately easy access to a whole new demographic to sell Lularoe leggings to.
Yeah, it's definitely like a direct path straight to it.
And it was crazy. So she apparently was teaching classes the day that all her inventory arrived, and she asked her husband to do a live unboxing of the stuff while she was teaching. And he was just doing it, and they were like, but we want to buy this, we want to buy this. And so people were like looking up how much everything was, and he sold everything that they got in the first night.
Before she even got home, which is fucking crazy.
So he made like $50,000.
Yeah, the first month they made $49,000 in sales, and the next month they made $127,000. What the fuck?
Holy shit.
That's 1 month.
Yeah, I know. All these people were making like, I was pulling in like $20,000 a day, and I'm like, I would just save all that and then quit after like 3 weeks.
Just give me like 2 days, and I just need like a year's worth of money to live off of, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I'll do Lularoe 2 days a year.
Exactly. Oh yeah, so we get more into the whole Lularoe pattern thing. So each print only had 3,000 garments made with it. And we talk a little bit to Ileana, who was the designer that you mentioned earlier. And I loved that she was like, yeah, they were ugly and tacky as hell, but we just like had to keep making them. So people kept buying them.
Yeah. I don't remember if it's in this part or if it was in the next part with Ileana, but she was talking about how they had to make 100 different designs a day.
Yeah, which, wow, that's
holy
crazy.
Shit. No wonder they were stealing art and shit, because how do you have I don't even have 100 thoughts a day at this point.
Same, no thoughts.
Much less 100 creative ideas.
Right. But the retailers never knew what prints they were going to get at all, which kind of sucked, because sometimes they could get really shitty ones and then can sell them. But that's just kind of the nature of it all, I suppose.
Yeah. People were trying to find their quote-unquote unicorn patterns, which I don't know. I don't think these people know the alternate meaning of unicorn hunting and unicorns, but it's really funny that they don't.
Yeah, it's, yeah.
For those of you who don't know, unicorn hunting is where you are trying to find a bisexual person to be your third in an equal relationship between a straight man and a straight woman.
It's interesting, too, because in the diabetes community, The unicorn is, well, it can mean one of two things. The unicorn is either when your blood sugar is exactly 100, which is very rare, and then, or when your your continuous glucose monitor reading is the same as your test strip finger stick meter, because they're very rarely exactly the same. So, just a little fun fact.
We use unicorns for so much.
Unicorns are, it's overdone.
We need to find like a different rare animal, like this is my dodo.
Exactly.
This is my kiwi bird.
I like that. We're going to start using that.
Oh, the only thing that really I wanted to mention about this part anymore was that Lachey went from onboarding and customer service to being a distributor because she was seeing all these checks that people were being mailed out, and she's like, what the fuck? I'm not getting paid like this.
I mean, I can't really blame her. If you see like people making that much money and you're just like sitting at a desk making however much an hour, I don't blame her.
Yeah. So we get kind of into the jargon of Lularoe, which is all just really stupid, and I understand why they did it like this, because they've done this. Their whole reason for making it a quote-unquote, for making it an MLM is quote-unquote, Deanne just couldn't teach everybody, so she needed to have other trainers to train people.
Okay.
Yeah, so when you just start, you're a retailer, you just get commission, and by selling, then you could be a sponsor, which is when you have a retailer underneath you, and for both of those, you have to buy a certain amount each month to stay active.
Right. Yeah, and at this point, the when you are a sponsor, you get a commission based on how much the person under you bought, like how much inventory they bought, not how much they sell, but how much they buy, which is important.
Yeah, so basically everybody who signs up for that $5,000 or $10,000, you get a chunk of that.
Yeah.
And so then you become a trainer when you have two people underneath you, which is a 5% commission on sales plus a trainer bonus on top.
And you get a watch.
You get the fucking watch.
You need the trainer watch.
And it's a Lularoe gold watch that says, "Be the kind of leader that you would follow" on the back.
I want to see if I can buy one on eBay.
God, we should get them. Can we do like a Halloween costume, a podcast Halloween costume where we're both Lula bitches or something?
Oh, that would be so good. It would be so good. And then the next level is coach, which has at least 3 trainers under them. And then after you're a coach, you're a mentor, which is the highest level, and that has 3 coaches underneath them.
Yep.
So it just gets crazy.
You can see how that pyramid is. If you're the mentor, you have 3 coaches underneath you who have 3 people underneath each of them, who have 3 people underneath each of them, and there you go.
Yep, there you go. But yeah, it got into some of the retailer or some of the Lularoe people talking about their teams. So Ashley said her team is about 5,000 people, which is fucking crazy. And she doesn't know like any of these people. Like she said, like it starts out where you're like recruiting people that you kind of know, but then it's like just whoever wants to be recruited is recruited under you. And it's like, that's stressful.
Yeah. And then all the people above you will give you leads sometimes too, if like they're trying to get you from coach to trainer or whatever, so they'll get more money off of you.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, then you can just get completely random people from whoever knows where. And like, I can't believe having 5,000 people underneath you, you actually help know or talk to most of them.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. That's just not possible. So yeah, it really starts to become where most of these people's money seems to be coming completely from bonuses related to recruiting and not actually the sale of the actual goods.
I think it was Ashley who said that when she was doing it at the biggest time, she would purchase $78,000 worth of product and would sell $83,000 worth of product. So that's only like $5,000 in profit, but she made like $65,000 a month in bonuses.
Right. Yeah. That's like crazy.
That fucking blows my mind.
I know. It's insane.
I can't imagine having $60,000 in my bank account at one time, honestly.
No. Like,
holy shit.
That's crazy. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah. It's a unreal amount of money that you could make in a year.
Mm-hmm. We also talk about how there was a big push of people selling LuLaRoe to always be like bragging about their lifestyle and the things that LuLaRoe allows them to do, like buying new things, cars and shit, and then like staying home with their kids, and they always had to like tag all their Instagram photos with like, oh, thank God,
Hashtag because of Lularoe.
yeah, it's like, oh my fucking God. And like Deanne would get pissed at them if they posted something positive and didn't have that hashtag.
Which is hilarious because, of course, they spliced it in with her deposition tape where she was like, I've never heard of what's a hashtag? I don't know what a hashtag is.
Yeah, and their fucking deposition, and even in their interview for the docuseries, they always come off as like, oh, I didn't know what I was doing. It's all just like, it all just kind of happened. And it's like, bitch, you're not fooling anyone.
No, there's no way that this can just like randomly happen. This is effort that you have expended.
This take planning to be this fucking scheming.
And okay, so I think Courtney was talking about this part too, because they were talking about making social media posts, and apparently when you're a mentor, there were specific posts and stuff that you had to do like every day. Like you had to make a big breakfast with your kids one day of week and post about it, like all because of Lularoe, like show the mess in the kitchen. And it's like, holy shit, like they're just like social engineering everyone to think that them is successful.
It's so fucked up how deep it goes and how it's so fucked up.
So fucked up.
So then we get into a little bit about the leadership events, which also seem crazy.
God, and these have been happening a lot lately with COVID, not Lularoe specifically, but there was just a Scentsy one and a paparazzi one, and they both turned into super spreader events because obviously.
Of course. So. Right. Good.
They're still happening.
But a big kind of reason for these events were to make retailers feel excited and important and connected to the message and kind of get the benefits of the community of Lularoe as well.
Plus a lot of really fun looking pictures that will make all of their people want to become leadership.
Definitely. I mean, it sounds incredible.
They got real crazy where they started letting in just random people who weren't signed up for Lularoe or anything if they were on the waiting list, because then they would get the golden ticket to be onboarded that day. And people would show up to all of the different leadership events all over the country and pay for it, pay for flights, pay for hotel, everything, and just go into massive debt trying to get onboarded.
Right. And then once they are onboarded, they have to pay to be onboarded.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just fucking nuts.
It's wild. And so then, of course, because they cannot just leave it at conferences, they had to go and make the Lula cruise.
Oh, God. Yeah, it's like the big incentive. And you get to go if you sell $12,000 a month in clothes and I guess also recruitment. I guess I don't even know. But I loved Lachey talking about it, that she turned down an invitation to the cruise because she didn't want to be stuck on a boat with a bunch of white people, which, mood.
I get it.
There wouldn't be that many of me there, so.
That was a correct decision, because
yes.
I can't imagine being stuck on a boat with that many Mormons.
No, I'm... my fight or flight was instantly activated when you said that.
Your face just dropped. You're like, oh God.
Must leave.
So the events always looked like fun, but apparently anybody who was actually like working didn't have any fun because it's just a big old work trip, and they had to teach and give speeches and work the whole time they were there, and then you were like, you have to look like you're having fun all the other times.
Well, and then they were like also, like you said, very expensive, and you were away from home, away from your kids, which like those are against what Lularoe is supposed to be for, like keeping you home and making you money. And here they are like forcing you to go to these things that make you spend money and be away from your family.
Yep. And so we get back to Sam a little bit because he was told that for the 2017 thing, he had an unlimited budget. So he booked Katy Perry.
Hell yeah. What else are you going to do?
I mean, that was a very good move. Because, women love Katy Perry. Millennial women.
I mean, yeah, definitely.
I saw a bag floating over Kroger the other day, one of those plastic bags, and I just started
Oh
singing
God,
Katy
do
Perry.
you ever feel like a plastic bag? I know. I always think that whenever and it's not good.
Yep. Deanne was not pleased that Katy Perry was there because she's like, "Isn't that the girl who sang about kissing girls?"
Let's just be homophobic and top of everything else. Even
Yep.
Anyway. Say we get a little bit, which this is kind of a large part of the rest of this, is where Mark and Deanne and everyone like big up in Lularoe continually like denying that this is a pyramid scheme, even though it clearly is a pyramid scheme. Like it is. Because they claim that it's not one because they're exchanging goods for money. But like we said, clearly the majority of the money by these people are being made by recruitment and not by selling the leggings and shit.
Yeah, like I don't go into any of the shops down here that sell leggings and buy leggings, and they come up to me and say, "Hey, do you want to sell these leggings too?" Like,
right.
No, that's not weird. That's weird. That's not a regular business. It's not how business is supposed to work.
Not at all.
Yeah, so this is when they start growing really big in 2016, 2017. They've gone from $70 million, like being worth $30 million, to being worth over $1.3 billion. They're having 25% growth month over month. It gets very numbery in here, but basically they make a whole lot of money, and nobody who's working there is capable or trained to do any of this because most of the people who work in corporate are their children.
Right. It's all their like family and not people who are actually like business people.
Yeah, so, you know, accounting, events, management, etc. No one knows what the fuck they're doing.
Right. Exactly. So things are great. Things are going to be going great.
So great.
All right. Do you want to just move on to the next episode? Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I'm good. Episode 3.
Yeah. Episode 3 is called Blow Up.
Yep.
This is where it gets good.
So we meet this girl, Becca Peterson, and she sells washi tape on Etsy and is really into researching Lularoe, which I get that.
I do too.
She needs to be my friend.
I was going to say, I could totally get along with this girl. Like, I get so deep into stuff too that I'm not even involved with. And it's like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, I want everybody else's drama.
Exactly. I don't want anything to do with it, but I want to watch it happen.
Yep. I don't even know what to say about this because I just wrote like a whole lot of things that they were saying where they're like, it's about blessing lives and giving back to your husband and female empowerment. And I love how fucking the crew asked Deanne, like, how do you feel like Lularoe does empower women? And fucking Mark was like, hang on, let me talk first.
Yeah. Let me talk this question about women. Let me talk over this woman because I know about women and empowering women, but this woman doesn't. Oh, he's so gross.
God, then it got into the really gross aspect of Lularoe where you're supposed to quote unquote retire your husband.
Oh,
so
God.
Basically, once you retire your husband, he's supposed to take over the like financial stuff of your Lularoe company that you're running, and they have all these horrific training things on how to make your husband happy, like appreciate, accept, and admire your husband. Don't talk man to man. Don't mother him. Never make him look bad.
Ugh, gross. But yeah, not only did it was just very like sexist and very much like it's all about the man, like even in Paul and Tiffany's situation, the couple we were just talking about, Tiffany says that Deanne never like spoke to her, didn't care about her. It was always about Paul and what Paul was doing. And
Paul's wife, Tiffany.
Right. Exactly. It's like, so not only are they, you know, just being sexist assholes, but also they're just like completely making this whole family unit dependent on Lularoe. Now it's not just one person, one of the incomes, it's the whole family is dependent on Lularoe.
Yeah, it's real fucked. I don't know. And there were lots of parts where if the husband wasn't supportive, they would say, here, read this book, or, you know, just find the new husband.
Yes. Which, yikes. Yeah, I loved this quote I have from Deanne, which is, women can be strong, but there's a time for him to be your hero.
Ugh. Ugh. Of course, their whole thing is that women just didn't know how to be since they went from Leave It to Beaver to then in the workplace. They just didn't know how to act to get a husband or to have a correct life.
Oh, God.
And so we figure out that Deanne's mom has written a book about how to use your femininity for women's rights. And it's apparently Deanne just straight up said, how to use your special parts to get your husband to do what you want to do.
Yep. Yeah, because she said a quote that that Deanne told one of the consultants was, "All you have to do as a woman to get on your knees for 5 minutes a day, and then he'll do whatever you want."
Ugh, I fucking hate her. I hate them. I hate all of them so much.
Yeah, it's bad. This part was very hard to get through.
Yeah. They have a suggested reading of The Proper Care and Feeding of Husbands. I don't know. It's icky.
It's all bad. It's all real bad.
Yeah. It was not fun.
Not good at all.
They were talking about how they had motivational calls, which I know we've all heard of these, like, weird calls too that lots of these MLMs have, but they're saying that they didn't ever teach them like technical help or anything. They just taught them like how to recruit, how to look successful, how to like amp up your rags to riches story. Like,
right.
Ugh.
But it's like all the training was very much like, this is what Lularoe. This is what Lularoe can do for you, and this is what you can do for Lularoe, and it's all like motivational, but not actually like helpful.
Yeah, they're like, we're gonna teach you how to sell, except we're not. We're just gonna talk random shit.
Right. Yeah, there was always a push for consultants to always like have their makeup done and always look like successful businesswomen, and you were like always. It was just like you always had to be on when you were a Lularoe consultant, which no thanks.
No thanks. And this is also kind of the part where we get to Deanne getting gastric sleeve surgery. And so she's lost 72 pounds. And then she starts taking women down to Tijuana to have them surgeried.
I loved that the place where she got her surgery was called Obesity, Not For Me.
I know.
What the fuck?
And then they had a fucking group text called the Tijuana Lularoe Skinnies.
I hated this part so fucking much. It made me so mad. Yeah, she was literally just like hooking all her consultants up with surgery in Tijuana, and not only just like hooking them up, but like pressuring them to do it.
Driving them down there.
Yes. Yeah. And like continually texting them and bombarding them with, when are you going to Tijuana? And it's like, what the fuck?
And the reason they were going to Tijuana is because at this point, gastric sleeve surgery was not permitted in the US.
Yeah. Which, I mean, maybe you should take a minute and think about why, like, figure out why that is.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not great. And I still don't think it should be permitted, honestly, because the complications way outweigh the benefits. But
right.
And if the benefit is just, I'm skinny now.
No thanks. Not worth
boring.
it.
It's boring.
So then we get into the turn where Mark and Deanne are encouraging consultants to hire nannies to do the things that, quote, won't make them money, aka caring for their children, which again was like the whole push to getting started into LuLaRoe was, oh, you can stay at home with your kids and still have a business.
Full-time money for part-time work.
Jesus.
And so let's see. I think this was Courtney who was being pressured into the Tijuana Skinnies, and then she went for the gastric balloon surgery, and there was like huge complications, and she had to get it taken out. And then, of course, we get into the hire a nanny section.
Yeah.
And then Courtney started looking at how much her downline was spending every month versus how much they were making, and she was like, "Oh shit, this is ethically not great."
Yeah. It's not going great for them. It's starting to get a little rocky.
And we're at a whole lot of people now selling LuLaRoe. So now the only way to be competitive is to have more inventory. And
Right.
then we hear the famous MLM phrase, "It works if you work it."
Right. No.
No.
So then we get into some of the product quality issues. So Roberta, which is one of the consultants that was interviewed a lot through these episodes, talks about how in 2016 she got a box of inventory and just one pair of the leggings were like absolutely fucking soaked with water. And then she gets another box a couple of weeks later and it smells fucking awful because all of the leggings, or not all of them, I don't know, some of the leggings have fucking molded because they had produced so much so quickly they didn't have space for them. So they were just out in a parking lot and getting wet and gross and being outside.
Yeah. And apparently when you went into the like customer service portal, one of the reasons for making a return was stinky leggings. So like they knew.
They knew. And they told her to put them in the freezer.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. Yeah.
I don't think I have room in my freezer for 18 boxes of Lularoe clothes.
Yeah, I don't have that big of a freezer, dude. I don't know.
One pair of jeans? Sure.
Yeah.
But so they figured out that a lot of the patterns, like the distributors who had been distributing since like 2015 were like, these are old patterns. These are clothes that are 2 years or more old.
Right. So it's just like all a fucking mess at this point. And there's like no quality assurance at all. The patterns weren't checked, like, and so there was like a lot of issues with like really awkward placement on patterns, especially in the crotch area. And
the leaning tower of penis, the vagina hamburger, the bee
classics
going into your coochie. It was
not
a lot.
Great. Not doing great.
I mean, I do kind of want to get a leaning tower of penis pair, like from Goodwill or something. I would wear those and just be like, look.
Those are good.
Yeah.
And then whenever, sorry.
Oh, go.
I was gonna say whenever like one of the consultants or whatever complained about how things were going, they were just told, quote, "It's not part of our culture to talk negative on Lularoe."
And this is what I was going into, is that Mark starts getting really gaslighty, where he's like, we have equal opportunity. We didn't promise equal outcome. And so apparently they were just made to feel like they're being crazy. Like, this isn't real, or, oh, it must have been something you did. And so.
Right. Well, and then the Mark has, I have a quote from Mark, which he says, "We didn't have a huge problem with wet leggings. We had a huge problem with social media." And he was just like blaming it all. And it's like, I mean, but those posts wouldn't have been on social media if there wasn't a problem, though. Like, there was still a problem.
Yeah. I don't know. And so then they show us this fucking clip from one of the fucking leadership event conferences thing, where it's escaping the victim mindset. You guys have all heard of the drama triangle. And it's like, oh my God, you guys are literally trying to control these women's lives entirely.
For real. It's terrifying, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically, if other people are experiencing your problem, they're using now that everyone's having these problems as the thing that if you're talking about it, you're just being a whiny bitch.
Yeah. And it's like,
see, everyone's having this problem and you're the only one whining.
Maybe we should address the everyone's having this problem part.
Right? Yeah. Mark says my favorite quote, I think, of probably this whole show, where he says, all these people saying my inventory is stale. No, you're stale.
You're stale. Good one, Mark.
So smart. What a zinger. You're a real Mensa genius.
For real. So then we start getting into like people not feeling it. So Sam, who was Deanne's nephew and the event coordinator, quit, and then he got a cease and desist so he couldn't talk to his aunt anymore. But then there were like rumors that he was fired because he was sleeping with everyone. It was like a mess. I don't know.
Yeah. Paul and Tiffany apparently got suspended because she was too loud about the concerns, and Lularoe not so nicely asked for their business back.
Right. It's just, it's not going great.
And then we get the real moment where the waterfall begins. the Lularoe Defectives group
Yes.
is made on Facebook.
It was, quickly a place where people could get together and talk shit about Lularoe and everything about it. Because, there needed to be something. And so not only did they have people on there complaining about the quality of the leggings, but they also had, consultants, retailers on there kind of complaining about their experience in general with Lularoe. So it's just like a community to talk shit on Lularoe.
Yeah, and so I'm sure like everyone who sees other Lularoe consultants are like, these people all look successful, and like they're only meant to show like the good stuff, hashtag because of Lularoe. And so finally when you get this group where it can be like thousands of people being like, I'm not making shit, like I don't know how people are making money on this.
Right. And then I think that like once you're confident that you're not the only one experiencing that, it's kind of like easier for you to admit that like, okay, this is fucked up. I'm not just like messing up.
Yeah.
It's all fucked up.
The gaslighting no longer works when you're a large group of people having the exact same issue. Like,
exactly.
It just doesn't hold up. And so, of course, then episode 3 ends up with Stella, who is one of the consultants who got screwed. She just ends up looking at the camera and says, I posted on Facebook, does anyone know a class action attorney?
Yeah.
It's like, I was like, hell yeah, Stella. Stella's getting her groove back.
She sure fucking is. So then the last episode is called Toe Up. Yeah. And it starts off with them talking about how in 2017 they changed up how they did the bonus checks. Because like I said, they were originally formulated to where you would get a bonus check if somebody was under you, and you would get that based on their inventory that they bought. And now it's based on how much they sold rather than how much they bought, which is kind of a way for them to try to step away from not being a pyramid scheme, even though you're still a pyramid scheme.
Yeah, it was very wild seeing the taped Train the Trainers video of like, Lindsay, what do you say to people when they say we're a pyramid scheme? And it's like, you can, that like quick response, like, oh, we're not a pyramid scheme. We have a product and we're not just recruiting people. Nah, 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 nah. And it was bullshit. And of course, then what's his face? I think his name was Patrick. He said, he was one of the kids. He said, well, we need to get away from being a pyramid scheme. And apparently they used that in the state case. Yeah. That he said it was a pyramid scheme.
Right. Yeah. Which, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
But this really changed a lot of things in terms of like how much people were getting. Like their bonus checks were basically being cut in half or more. So yeah, things are changing pretty quickly.
Yep. So they changed the bonus checks first, and then because part of the pyramid scheme legality is that you have to be able to return products, they worked on a 100% buyback policy that they said it's never going to go away. There's no expiration. It doesn't matter when you bought the product, you can always return it.
Yeah, and they had that in writing too. That wasn't just like something that they said. That was told to them. And this started what they call the Great Exodus, which is where a lot of people got out that were in, and there was like a lot of people leaving. And then just a couple months later, in September of 2017, the buyback policy was over. And so they did allow like some returns, but there was tons of stipulations, and it wasn't at all like the policy that was in place before that was not supposed to expire.
Yep. Yeah, so basically everyone left in the Great Exodus, and then when they took it back, everyone at corporate bailed because they were like, this is fucked up. Like, I don't want to be, this is a scam. So Roberta, who we had mentioned before, said that one of her downlines was talking about how she's going to have to go into foreclosure because she can't get any money back from all of her product. And Roberta being like, shit, I've been predatory and I was a part of it, and this is a bad thing. So she posted a resignation letter on Facebook. And of course, Deanne and Mark are like, so much negativity.
Yeah. Which, like, that is really sad, too. That, like, so much, there's, like, probably a lot of guilt on a lot of the, like, more successful people who probably truly did not think that they were doing anything wrong by recruiting these people and didn't realize the kind of nefarious nature behind it. And it sucks that they were taken advantage of, and then they have to deal with the guilt of knowing that they also
theoretically bankrupted one of their friends.
Exactly. Right.
Because, like, the thing about MLMs and what makes it so hard for people to, like, grapple with how much of a scam and how predatory they are is, first of all, because you don't ever want to believe that you can be scammed.
Definitely,
and
yeah.
second of all is you don't want to be the person who accidentally scammed every single one of your friends and you've been living off their money while they're going bankrupt.
Yeah. That doesn't sound great.
So very hard to be like, oh fuck, I fucked up, because then you really have to deal with all of that accountability on many levels.
Right. So we get back in touch with Stella, who, like you said, ended the last episode. So she had $20,000 of inventory that she couldn't return. And she basically, there was like a lot of things that go into her. Like, she had like a really late miscarriage and was in postpartum depression and had like a lot of issues, and basically was like in debt up to her eyeballs because she couldn't get this inventory returned, whatever.
Yeah, and they had already confirmed that they were going to take the return.
Right.
In that
they just hadn't
small
paid
window.
It out.
And she just hadn't sent it back, I think, was the big thing. Because she had to send out all those fucking boxes, huge boxes of clothes.
Yeah, like $20,000 worth of inventory. Like, that's a lot of fucking clothes.
Yeah.
And so she, like, hires Kelly, who was an attorney, to represent her.
And see if there's, class action.
Yeah. And, like, tons of other women kind of come forward and, like, tell their stories in support of this lawsuit and just like taking Lularoe down in general.
So kind of the nitty gritty of this is that they started as a breach of contract, which is the contract between her and Lularoe to take the stuff back. But then because there were so many people, they started doing class action, and they went to California and filed the case, and they ended up accusing them not just of class action breach of contract, but of being a pyramid scheme.
Right.
Which is big. That's big.
Yeah, definitely. And then in addition to that, there just have been like dozens of lawsuits against Lularoe for all kinds of things, for defective products, for copyright infringement. Like we talked about, there was a lot of stolen designs, which makes sense if you have to make 100 designs a day. Like, you're gonna steal them. And Ileana kind of talks about how they were given like guidelines to where like you can take stuff off of Google, but you have to change so many, like this much percent or whatever.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's kind of a gray area, though, to be fair. Like,
it is. I mean, there's Creative Commons license and stuff where that kind of stuff is meant to be like, you can use it for commercial use, or you can only use it for personal use, plus, remixing or whatever. But generally, copyright and intellectual property will just get you if you use it at all.
Yeah.
If somebody cares that you use it, you're probably going to get got.
Right.
Which sucks.
Does suck.
Also doesn't suck for the people who make it. I don't know. It's a lot, especially with how like prolific Google is now, and they really don't teach anybody anything about copyright.
Right. Yeah. So then there was they get into the details of another one of the big suits with My Dyer, which was I don't even really know. There was like I think Lularoe owed them like $40 million for supplies and stuff, and Mark and the guy were like friends, and so
because they were in a fucking car group together for Koenigsegg's. And Koenigsegg's are like the fastest car on the planet that'll take you from 0 to 200 in 1 minute or whatever, and they're like $300,000 cars at the minimum.
Yep.
And there's all this stuff where Daniel King, who's the guy of My Dyer, figures out that Mark has been hiding money both in cars and like by buying cars, because you can sell them for the same price again, or the LLCs, and they start suing them for defrauding. I think that's it, for fraud. So they kept making orders even though they knew they wouldn't be able to pay the bills.
Right. Yeah, and it's just a fucking mess.
At one point in time, I can't remember if it was the journalist or the lawyer or Becca who said they just turned into the meme of Spider-Man pointing at themselves.
Yes, yeah, I loved that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just lots of fucked up shit going on in terms of lawsuits and Lularoe. And we talk a little bit about how basically once you left Lularoe, nobody was to talk to you anymore. It was like basically you leaving the church.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically like, don't talk to anybody outside of the cult.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Yeah, so when Courtney sent in her letter of resignation, they owed her about $100,000 in returns, and she said that everyone was told not to talk to her or else they would actually just be fired. Not just giving a talking to, they would be fired.
Cool.
And so then, of course, we have the scammers getting scammed, scamming others, fiesta, where Sam, who had been terminated before, reached out to Courtney to invest in his marijuana business, and she was like, "This is stupid. This is not real." And
this is not real. It wasn't.
He got scammed. He got Ponzi schemed.
Yeah, not very smart, bro, but
you fell for one, you might fall for another.
I guess you're just really, really gullible to these things, but you'd think you'd learn.
It's greed, man. Gotta make money quick without working.
Oh, I loved this part so much. They were talking about how in the 2018 convention they had Kelly Clarkson play. And then Daryl, who I was talking about earlier, was talking about how he boycotted Kelly Clarkson for performing at this convention. And he's like, and it's a real shame because I really liked whatever song it was. It was so funny.
Yeah, I love the song that she did with so-and-so. And he like lists off the title and he's like, that was my favorite song in the world, but I'm not gonna listen to it.
It was so funny. I was like, hell yeah, fuck it.
Since you've been gone, Daryl, since you've been gone.
Since you've been gone. So then Paul and Tiffany get into how they were terminated, and they tell how their story was basically they got an email one morning that said that like somebody high, like a high-ranking salesperson was terminated, and Paul and Tiffany were texting everyone and everyone was texting them trying to figure out who it was. And then later that day, Paul and Tiffany get an email that it was them.
Yeah. 4 hours later. 4 hours after the first email. Like, who's fired? Who's fired? Oh, it's you. Hardcore. And then, of course, because they were fired, they could not do the 100% buyback guarantee. Either.
Yeah, of course.
Apart from the fact it being 2018 and they had already nixed it. But
Right.
So then we get into January of 2019, where Washington State officially files a claim that they are a pyramid scheme against them. The lawsuit claimed basically the pyramid scheme means that you can't just have a successful business just selling the product. You have to recruit to actually make money, and that's true.
Right, definitely, yeah. Yeah, and this is where Jordan was the name of the son, actually. And he said they used the clip of him saying, we need to change things to get away from being a pyramid scheme. Which, yeah, I'm sure he regrets saying those things. But, I mean, they would have gone anyway.
Yeah. I mean, this was really where it got crazy. So Mark and Deanne, and this whole thing gets really crazy because they start talking about how, oh, no, none of this, blah, blah, blah. And in the deposition, they'll just be like, well, I don't know, da-da-da. About each thing, and then it'll be them in the interview being like, well, I knew all about that hashtag, or I really wanted to do this thing, and it's just like, oh my god, these people
so
don't
bad.
Understand.
I just wonder like what Mark and Deanne, like how they thought they were gonna look after this documentary, because I
don't know. I mean, at the beginning they were all like, it's just so nice to be able to tell our side of the story.
Yeah. It's like, did they really think that we were gonna be like,
I think they did. I think they really thought that.
Yikes. Yeah,
I think it was like their PR tour of like post lawsuit trying to get everything okay again, and they fucked up.
Yeah. I love, they have a quote, and I don't know who said this. I'm not sure if it was somebody from Lularoe or one of the retailers, but they said, if Lularoe were to be found guilty, then I feel that every direct sales company should be investigated as well. And it's like, I mean, yeah, agreed. Yeah. Like,
it's the girl Jill Dramer,
yes. Okay,
who is
that's
still working for Lularoe to this day.
I know, she was like the one person who was like, I think it's fun. I love it. I don't know what everyone else is on about. Like, it's great.
Oh God. Yeah. So one of the things that they talked about at one of the Vision events, they asked, so you presented a check for $1.4 million to this person, and they're like, so how did they earn that? And Deanne was like, well, they did 16 parties a week for 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And they're like, well, what percentage of that check was selling versus bonus recruiting? And Mark just says, oh, the entire $1.4 million was bonus checks. We don't track retail profits.
Which, like, that's you're
How are
literally
you making
admitting
the
it.
argument that you're not a pyramid scheme if you're not tracking retail sales?
Exactly. Yeah. Like, if all the money that you're giving them is because of recruitment, then like you're literally proving the point that it's not the goods that are making the money.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. No, that Jill girl, I just feel so bad for her because she's hook, line, and
yeah.
sinkered in there. Because how do you get out when there's
Yeah.
no way out?
I don't even know. They kind of talk about how, like, it's not necessarily inherently illegal to be an MLM, but there are like regulations that need to be in place in order for them it to be like okay, like including a buyback policy and all kinds of stuff, and like the number of customers and stuff like that. It's all very
Yeah,
new
you
now.
have to have 10 or more customers each month buying your stuff
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise it's just other retailers buying from each other forever
Right.
to fake
Exactly.
boost sales. It's insane. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how, like, I get why, like, how people who are consultants don't see it, but, like, how does anybody at the top be like, oh, we're not going to get caught for this?
Right. It's like, what the fuck? People are so overly confident and think that they are invincible, and it's like, no, dude, no.
I think my second favorite quote of this whole series was right about now, and I can't remember who said it, but it was one of the retailers who got screwed. Maybe Stella, maybe one of the other ones. But they're like, what question would you want to ask Mark and Deanne? And she just looks at the camera and she's like, they would lie to you anyway. Just don't ask any questions. You're not going to get any truth.
It's like, why would I ask a question? It's a good point.
They're going to lie. I don't know. Mark gets sued a lot.
Yeah.
Which he's like, my philosophy for lawsuits is that they're made for getting attention so that I can handle it. And I'm like, sir, no.
No.
Lawsuits, like, last thing. Like, you've already had lawyers come up and say, like, please pay this invoice. Like,
right. Yeah.
hello? So I don't remember her name. I just called her Closet Lady in this one. I think it might have been Ashley. But she apparently quit when she was still making 6 figures a year. But she and her husband had already separated because of how much time she was spending doing Lularoe.
It was Ashley, yeah.
Yeah, and she was like, I had a really good experience, but I know that I'm probably the only one in that position who could have had that experience because she was the third in.
Right, yeah. She was in at the beginning and got ahead at the beginning, yeah. And she says that when she, I guess Deanne reached out to her after she left or whatever and told her that she should take her kids to church so that they would have stability.
Mm-hmm. Like, that's the biggest go fuck yourself on both sides on that one.
Yeah. Fuck that.
We also find out that Courtney and her husband divorced, and Courtney had to sell all her stuff and claim bankruptcy. Everyone was screwed, even people who got in early and people who made a whole lot of money because they but they told you to spend all of your profits back in the business every month.
Exactly.
So you're making $65K in bonus checks, but you weren't keeping any of that. You were buying Louis Vuitton bags and going on vacations and looking fancy.
Yeah, and going to their events and their cruises and, all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So we get a lot of talk about MLMs and like how they target women and stay-at-home moms and retired people. Becca says that the class action was successful because people came together and started sharing information on Facebook, which, yes, if you feel like you're being exploited, go and talk to people who are in the same situation as you and ask if they're having the same stuff. That's also how we unionize.
Exactly.
Ask your coworkers what they make. Just do it.
Yeah, it's for the best.
Yeah. So kind of this whole thing ended up with my favorite, I'm going to say another favorite quote. Top 3. We're doing top 3.
Go for it, yes.
So this one was, I think it was Sam or Daryl. And he's like, this is what happens when you stop caring about ethics and morals.
Yep. It's very true.
Yep. Everyone went bankrupt. You ruined thousands of lives. Wasted millions of dollars.
Yep. So the Washington lawsuit was settled for $4.75 million, but Lularoe still deny any wrongdoing, of course. But they did have to update their refund policy and other things. And nowadays, it's like completely different. Like the startup cost is a lot lower now to attract more people, but there's like, so I feel like there's just so much negativity surrounding Lularoe. Like everyone knows that something is up with Lularoe now, that it cannot be easy for them to recruit new people.
No. And of course we get into a little of this with that guy who's the MLM expert, who's like wrote the book on MLMs.
Yeah.
And he's like, the problem is that when Lularoe fails, when it finally goes under, they'll just move to another one, or they'll rebrand, or they'll change their name, and all of the people who are consultants there will just move to It Works or Scentsy or Paparazzi or whatever.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that the more that this is talked about, you know, the more that people are aware of how fucked up these things are, and maybe some people will get caught before they get in. I don't know. It's a fucking shitty thing. It's
so shitty. And then this whole show ends with Jill being like, I want to do Lularoe forever. Da 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 da. And she just keeps talking, and they just fade out away from her building into the credits.
It was so good. Yeah. The editing on this was really, really good.
It was
and
very
altogether,
tight.
I just thought that this was a really solid docuseries. Lots of good information. And I liked the kind of variety of stories that we heard, that we didn't just hear from people who hated Lularoe necessarily. We heard from like a mix of people who had good, like successful experience and really not successful experiences. So it was good.
People who got out before it got bad.
Right. Exactly.
And people who are still in for some reason.
For some fucking reason.
I don't know why. Girl, get out. Don't do it.
Go
start your own shop and buy all of these nice clothes wholesale and have a little boutique. It will give you just as much joy and more money.
Yes. But yeah, do you have anything else to add?
No.
Nope. I think that about does it for today's episode. But if you have anything you'd like to say about this docuseries, about this episode, or about any of our other episodes, or if you have any suggestions for things for us to watch in the future, send us an email at tvliterate@gmail.com.
And you can find us all over the internet at TV Literate. We are on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Reddit. We're everywhere. If you find anything of interest, or, Duggar related or MLM related, or just a funny meme, just send it along to us. We love it. We read it. We may not always respond, but we see it and we love you guys.
We do. And we appreciate it all.
And you can also find us on Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/TV Literate. If you want to give us $1 to help with podcasting costs, we would be appreciative and we would love you for it.
Yes, we would really appreciate it. We would also appreciate it if you took the time to leave us a review and recommend us to any of your friends. And we will see you guys next week with another episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.